Speaking of problems.
Yes, what problem? What?
How you doing? How you doing today? How's everything going?
Oh, I'm fine.
36 hours later.
It's fine.
You know, the Vikings.
It's fine. This is fine.
You don't have a quarterback. Your quarterback ditched you.
Sam Darnold.
Right.
No, you love Sam Darnold.
I do.
I'm with you.
Hey.
Sam Darnold has untapped potential that 6 years in the NFL is yet to fully reveal.
Well, I mean, this will be hopefully the first time he can be a starter and have the right support system around him, right? But like, the Kirk Cousins Minnesota Vikings thing, man, I'm not like, it's one of those where, hey, it was shocking when it happened. I know we talked about it yesterday, but there was a part of me that was like, man, at like 4:30, 5 o'clock yesterday, I was like, I wish I could talk about the Kirk Cousins thing more with the Vikings and talk about it with Mike one more time, right? Because I feel like the more time that's gone by, the more I'm like, what in the hell were the Vikings doing? How the hell did they let Kirk Cousins out the door? That's what I'm really, as the more it goes, I go, wait, you let one of the top quarterbacks in football, top 10-ish, top 12-ish, we went through the exercise during the season, out the door for what? Like a few extra $1 million? And like we talk about all the time, like you can't easily replace that. It's like, hey, oh yeah, we'll get another guy in here that's, what do they say? Elite. Well, I don't know who are you gonna get that's more elite than Kirk Cousins right now? With a team that has a lot of playoff caliber traits. You got a coach who was brought there to be Johnny offensive coordinator. We're going to have an awesome offense. And you chop a leg away from him and take away the quarterback that he's groomed since he's got there and done awesome things with. I don't know. The more time that goes by, I just go, what the hell was Minnesota thinking? Not going up and making an offer that was worthy in Kirk Cousins' mind of staying in town and staying with Minnesota. I think the more time that goes by, the more crazier I think Minnesota is for the whole thing. I thought Cousins was gutsy, Atlanta's gutsy, Minnesota's crazy to let him out the door. I think that's what I'm coming to the more and more I think about this and let it ruminate in my brain there.
I think there was an institutional arrogance that he wasn't going to find anything better than what they were willing to offer, or they strategically crafted the offer, daring him and or inviting him to go find better elsewhere. And if you do, see you later. This gets back to the point that I made yesterday, and I wrote about it.
What was that?
In the afternoon. Well, and of course, Vikings fans are all pissed at me now. The idea that there may be some dysfunction brewing in Minnesota. You may not have a coach and GM on the same page.
How? Of course there is.
Told us the
truth.
Of
course.
Assuming he was telling us the truth, and he doesn't seem to be that kind of guy, which makes it harder to be an effective coach in the NFL because you do have to lie from time to time or at least avoid the topic altogether. We believed him when we sat within 5 feet of him, and he told us he wants Kirk Cousins. So the head coach wants him. GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah apparently doesn't, or the organization itself, ownership doesn't. I mean, if this is a situation where O'Connell and the GM wanted him and ownership didn't, then shame on ownership for not letting their football people do the job. If this is O'Connell wanted him and Adofo-Mensah didn't, then you've got something that you just need to keep an eye on going forward.
No doubt.
How else is this going to manifest itself? O'Connell wants Justin Jefferson. We're not going to trade him. I don't rule out Kwesi Adofo-Mensah trading Justin Jefferson because, Chris, I go back to where I was last year.
Yeah.
My feeling, pasta and meatballs last year was this is it with Kirk Cousins. They're going to try to get themselves in position to draft a franchise quarterback who'll be there for 10 years or longer. And if they have to trade Justin Jefferson to get into the top of the draft, maybe they will. And I said before the season started, probably on this show, if they don't extend Jefferson before week 1 of the 2023 season, a trade is in play. And I still think a trade's in play. I still think it is. Because one thing we learned, whatever Kevin O'Connell tells us is not on behalf of the organization.
No.
It's just on behalf of him.
No. I have a hard time thinking like your first option's reality with the owner, right? I haven't heard of the owners up there sticking their nose in things and being that kind of part of the group, right? Yeah, your pasta and meatballs, I think what we heard early on in the Kwesi Adofo-Mensah era, as far as talking about, we're elite quarterback and all that. Yeah, that to me at the end of the day looks like, the hay was in the barn already, right? There was going to have to be something extravagant done by Kirk Cousins this year to stay or maybe get the offer he wanted. But I agree with you in your thought that GM and Kevin O'Connell watch out for something there. Of course, my history in the NFL, people I know, whatever, right? Knowing Kevin O'Connell a little bit, knowing the coaches he came from, Kirk Cousins is his type of quarterback. That's what he wanted. He can run his offense and do all the things we talked about. He's got to be, Kevin O'Connell has to be sitting there going, I can't believe we didn't offer the extra $4 million or $5 million a year to keep Kirk Cousins. He's got to be going crazy. And this is where, hey, this will be lessons for other great, offensive OC head coaches as they go forward. It's going to be stuff like this that's going to have them raise their hand and go, no, I would like power to make the last decision. I don't want to let the GM who has some agenda and for some reason is, we're going to find an elite quarterback. Even though we have a really good one, he might not be elite, but he's really damn good. We're just going to throw that out the door and go, hey, we'll find elite somewhere. It's falling from the sky. That, to me, is where it's crazy. And I'm with you, Mike. I think we should be all over looking for friction there between those two, because that's the kind of move that we saw 2 days ago that will change the dynamic of any relationship there between a coach and a GM.
And this is where fans struggle, because on one hand, you don't want anyone stirring up trouble for the team. You don't want to hear anything bad about your team. You want to live in a little world of delusion and fantasy that everything is fine. Okay, enjoy that then, if what I'm sensing is accurate. Or what you can do is insist on something changing and shame them into becoming not dysfunctional. Shame them, call them out, shine a light on it, and make it better. That's why anytime a team's dysfunctional, I try to shine the light on it, because fan bases, whichever fan base, doesn't deserve to be beholden to and caught up by this reality where there isn't a damn thing they can do about it other than not go to the games or not watch the games. And it's too late to turn back from your fandom. That doesn't happen. People toy with the idea from time to time, and I've heard from some Vikings fans who are sufficiently distraught about what's gone on to be considering their options. Good luck with that. You can't just turn that off. It's like turning your back on your family. Not easy to do.
Yeah.
Although some have done it. Some in football have done it. But it's not easy to do. What? That's later in the show. It's not easy to do for a fan. So we're here to try to shine that light and disinfect these situations and get people to realize, yeah, you want this guy to coach the team, and this gets back to the old Parcells thing. You want me to cook the meal, you got to let me shop for the groceries. They're not giving Kevin O'Connell the ability to go get the guys he wants. Now, we still don't know, and I've been trying to find out what the Vikings offered. If the Vikings made a great competitive offer, they need to get that out there to make it look like Kirk chose to leave.
Getting the feeling,
there's a chance that final offer was calculated. You hear about the offer you can't refuse. Sometimes you get an offer that is designed to not be accepted, that is specifically engineered to look like it's being respectful, but it's just on the right side of respectful. Now, Chris, back to your point from before yesterday, the guy's on one leg. The guy's recovering from an Achilles tendon.
I hear you.
You're taking a leap of faith.
Right.
And I did write a couple things yesterday about what you can and can't find out if you're not the Vikings.
I saw that.
As free agency approaches, as legal tampering approaches. Folks, the Falcons tampered their ass off with Kirk Cousins. I mean, everybody tampers, so I don't think the NFL is going to do anything. But this is that one new situation where you're giving the guy a massive contract 2 hours into the legal negotiating window, and they weren't allowed to have anything until noon Eastern on Monday. They weren't allowed to talk to the agent about it. They weren't allowed to get any X-rays or MRIs or doctor's reports. The teams still can't share information between themselves until after 4 p.m. Eastern today. Clearly, the Falcons tampered. And if there's ever going to be a time that the NFL comes down on somebody, frankly, it's this one, because it is unprecedented to be sharing that medical information, and it would be easy to find if the NFL decided to investigate it. And that's part of the the business risk the Falcons are taking here. We want this guy, we're getting this guy, and we'll worry about the consequences later. But clearly, unless they are just foolish and reckless and just said, oh, what the hell, he looks good in that video where he's throwing passes on a tennis court, unless that was good enough for them, they clearly went beyond what we ordinarily see when somebody recruits a guy and talks to a guy and gives numbers to an agent before we get to that legal tampering window.
I would think so. Just again, my history, knowledge of everything is there's no way Atlanta gives him that contract and does that without having extra inside info on the whole situation. Like, I have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time believing that they're just going to do that and go, oh, well, hey, we'll just see how we'll see how the physical goes. We got our fan base all excited and everything, but we'll just see how it goes. I mean, we hope it works out. I mean, come on, like get the hell out of here. Of course they looked at him. Of course they know a lot about the situation that they're probably not supposed to know. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, you're right. I mean, you brought it up. I mean, there's risks there. There's risk there with Minnesota and all that too. I certainly have been one to verbalize that and say those type of things too. But I guess I still go back to the shock factor, letting him out the door. What I said yesterday. Here we are. We're getting towards close to 48 hours. I said yesterday, if we don't start to hear contract numbers, that means that they weren't in the ballpark. They were low. It was disrespectful. I'm going to still hold to that. I feel like if we don't hear something by today or tomorrow, the offer is something what you're saying there, Mike. Certainly. And then I think the more I think about it, hey, modern medicine, the Achilles injury, right? We're seeing people heal from that. I guess I'm just, again, I can't believe they let a franchise big-time quarterback out the door with – not really a hard, big-time contingency plan. Your contingency plan is what you said and alluded to and joked about a little bit before. 6 years in, a guy that we think might be good, but we haven't seen it yet. There is some talent there, but hey, we got a playoff caliber team. We're going to ride with that guy. When I say it out loud, that's what made me do it. I talked out loud yesterday, Mike, a few times, and I was like, wait, this Minnesota thing's crazy. And that's really what, led me to asking you that this morning and wanting to kind of dive back into it one more time.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much,
Little processed anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, and now you tear the Band-Aid off again. But look, if the Vikings did make a competitive offer, this is where the broader PR strategy comes into play.
Definitely.
We need to get that out there. We need to make it look like it was him. We need to make it look like it was close enough that he should have stayed.
Right.
Now, this is where the whole Minnesota nice thing comes into play, and sometimes I say the fan base is too tolerant of the team, and, you got to be a little ruthless at times. There are times like this, special occasions where you got to roll up your sleeves. Unless at the end of the day, this was all about, and again, that may be why the numbers aren't out. This was all about going through the motions and letting Kirk Cousins leave. Yeah, he had some great performances last year. Yeah, that Monday night game against the 49ers was arguably the best of his career. And that's what made people like me change their opinion. Yeah. And then 6 days later, there goes the Achilles tendon. You take that away. If they just continue on that path to Strugglesville that they were on early in the season, it becomes a lot easier to get behind the idea that Kirk Cousins is leaving.
Right.
But here's the other reality. The Falcons aren't going to be there. He's not going to have another option. That's the catch-22 in this. If he just has a blah year and nobody says, hey, that guy really still, hey, this guy could be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, the Falcons aren't paying him $180 million, whatever. It's not $180 million, but you know what I mean. Whatever they're giving him, they're not giving him that. They're not giving him that deal that has $100 million guaranteed. They're not doing it. Right. Nobody's doing it.
Right.
So the better he played, the more attractive he became, the less likely the Vikings are to keep him. But the Vikings, I don't think, wanted to keep him anyway.
No.
You may have people in the Vikings organization who are happy by this outcome. We finally offloaded this guy. We don't have to do a Band-Aid and keep him around. We're not being pressured by the fan base to keep him around. That may be why they kept so quiet. The Falcons, I think, kept quiet about it because there probably was some blatant tampering going on based upon the application of common sense and our mutual understanding of the way things work.
Right.
I think the Vikings were keeping quiet, too, because other than Kevin O'Connell, they were keeping quiet because I think that there were folks there, whether it's Kwesi Adofo-Mensah or somebody else, that was kind of like, this is our way to finally get off this highway,
right. Yep.
to get off the Kirk Cousins highway and move on to something else. Because what do we ultimately have to show for it? And I'm speaking as if I'm a member of the organization. If we're sitting around a room talking about this, what do we ultimately have to show for this? We've got 2 playoff appearances in 6 years and 1 playoff win. What are we doing this for? I've criticized them in the past. I've said for the Vikings, just good enough is just good enough.
Yep.
So this is a way, and this is, I guess, where their willingness to hold firm to their plan comes into play, even if the head coach isn't on board with that plan because he wants Kirk Cousins to stick around. The plan is we want a guy that's gonna, it's going to allow us to say after 6 NFL seasons, not that we got to the playoffs twice and won 1 playoff game. We got to the AFC Championship game or the NFC Championship game every damn year.
Yeah, right.
We went to the Super Bowl 4 times, right? Now, the problem is you can't wave a magic wand and find Patrick Mahomes. But I think the Vikings are at the point where they want to try. They want to try. That I think, is the best way to understand how they got to where they are. But the problem is, and this gets back to the concept of dysfunction, you need to have Kevin O'Connell on board with that when 100%. He's making the rounds at the scouting combine.
Yes, right.
That's the problem.
Right.
As much as we respect him and admire him and like him as a coach, something went haywire for the Vikings in the run-up to this because you got the head coach sending one message and the front office preparing to do something.
The head coach is doing, I think, what I'm talking about, what we're alluding to. He's going, wait, we're going to let one of the better quarterbacks out the door for nothing? Like, we're just going to let him go? That's it? And we don't really have a plan? And we're kind of in, like, no man's land as far as the quarterback situation? We're in a spot where we might not get, the top 3 guys at least. That's where I think that's obvious. As the more I think about it, a telltale sign they were not on the same page. Yes, I think that speaks to it. He would have had different language at the combine if he was going along with the rest of the front office. I think what he was saying at the combine was his way of publicly pushing back a little bit and putting a little pressure on it without being a jerk or, making it too obvious. I think, at the end of the day, and I look back at it all and think about it more and more, I think that's exactly what it was. He's sitting there scratching his head going, I can't believe this. We're going to let this guy go. We've gone up and down the field against everybody in football ever since I got him as a quarterback, and we're just going to throw him away. And I think he was probably shocked by that. Of course he was. How could he not be?
And that's the reality going forward, Vikings fans. I know you might not want to hear this, but something like this leaves a scar. It is the kind of thing that impacts relationships in a negative way. They better have some weekend somewhere where they do team building exercises to get everybody back on the same page. And even that's not going to work. What's going to work is winning. That's the only thing that's going to work. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's plan has to be validated. Of course, for it to be validated, Kevin O'Connell's got to do superhuman feats getting Sam Darnold to play like Kirk Cousins, or they have to find a Patrick Mahomes in the draft. Whoever they get with pick number 11. I talk all the time about pressure on a quarterback. What if they trade up? What if they dangle Justin Jefferson to trade up to number 3 and get one of the top guys? A hell of a lot of pressure on that guy and on the team to get the most out of him. And the guy that's going to be expected to do it is the guy that just wanted to keep Kirk Cousins in the first place.
Yeah.
I wanted to keep Kirk Cousins. We had put in all the work. The guy's ready to explode, and he's going to explode for someone else. And now I got to start from scratch with this new guy? I hope to hell when it's time to pick a quarterback, they at least listen to Kevin O'Connell, because that's the only way to make this worse, is if they draft a guy that they like and he doesn't, if he likes somebody else. So that's one way as they pick up the pieces on this. O'Connell needs to be a little more ruthless and a little more aggressive, and he needs to leverage this into a position of, all right, fine, you got your way, but whoever you draft, if this is the guy I'm going to be expected to turn into a real quarterback, I need a seat at the table. I need to have a real voice here. I need to have more of a voice than I had with Kirk. I need the guy I want if you expect me to turn this guy into the franchise quarterback the organization hasn't had since Fran Tarkenton.
Yeah, agreed with you there. 100%. They got to let him be involved with that.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.